Hi, and welcome to the Quick and Dirty Romance Podcast. We're your hosts, romance authors, and bicoastal friends for life. I'm Skye McDonald, author of the Auntie Belle series and the new Connecticut Commodores hockey series.
I'm Sarah Smith, author of No Freaking Way.
And together we are Sarah Skye, author of the best-selling Unlikely Pairings series.
Each episode will dive deep into what it's like to be a contemporary romance author. We'll talk writing inspiration, give you the inside scoop about the publishing world, chat about how we write those infamous sex scenes, and more. And then we'll pull out and wrap it up in 30 minutes or less, so we promise to leave you satisfied.
And if you haven't already read our books, be sure to check them out after you listen to this podcast and DM us with any questions or future requests for episodes that you might have.
So this is another Quick and Dirty with Friends episode. We're so excited to welcome Allie Lasky to the show. Allie is a queer and AuDHD writer with a hyperfixation on inclusivity and representation. She loves the colors purple and teal, Broadway musicals, Michigan football, and the Boston Bruins. When she's not absorbed by a book, she likes to spend time with her nephews. A San Diego, California native, she's allergic to the cold, rain, snow, and mosquitoes.
Welcome, Allie. I have so many questions based on your bio, but we'll get there. Allie's joining us to talk today. Our topic, among many other things, certainly, is the impact of romance and consuming romance stories on real life. Now, Allie brought this topic to us, and I have to say, we're very curious. So where did this inspiration for this topic come from? And I'm excited to discuss how this goes. So, Allie, what made you think about this, and where shall we go from there? Let's go.
Well, thank you for having me today. I see a lot of people having conversations about where is the boundary between having standards and having unrealistic standards. And when we consume romance novels, rom-coms, all the media that is being, in our faces, where do you decide what is something that's acceptable in a partner, not acceptable? And when are you looking for an idealized fictional person who does not exist? It is something that is going to be different for every single person. And it's up to each person to decide what their standards are and what they will allow and not allow a partner to do or say or think or act.
I am so excited that you've brought this topic up. My brain is like, yes, let's go. What made you think about this? Are you thinking about like dark romance or sort of the alpha holes? Are you thinking about just the idealization of the physical body, the idealization
Yes,
of the
all of
happy
it.
ending? Yes, all of it.
All of it.
Okay.
I am in a lot of reader support groups or like reader recommendation groups. And hey, I'm looking for this. And my boyfriend just left me or did this, or my spouse did this, or my partner said that. I'm looking for this. And there's also women who are people, not just women, people who are being told that they need to settle and no one is perfect and everyone is going to have flaws. So you just do what you have to do. And I think there's a lot of people who are still in the mindset of sit down, shut up, and take it. And we don't have to deal with it that way. We have the freedom and the liberty to decide what we want in our life. And we don't have to have toxic negativity if we don't want it. It's different when we have conditioned ourselves to think that that's what we want and need. It's different when we don't have the courage to say, this is what I want, or when we're not ready to say that. And it's different when people have circumstances where they do want a partner and having a partner is better than having no partner. For me, though, I'd rather have no partner than have the wrong partner. And I would rather have a true partner than have just someone in my life who detracts from it.
Is that what draws you to writing romance?
Yes. Also, I don't understand people and people are fascinating.
Okay.
But interpersonal relationships are just so fascinating for me. I do a lot of found families in my writing because
Mm-hmm.
I write the relationships I want to have in my life. I found these amazing people who are my friends, they are my sisters, they are my brothers, but I want everyone to have that opportunity. Not everyone has a wonderful family of origin. Not everyone has a supportive family of origin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to me that everyone knows that there is a way to find those people, no matter how isolated we feel.
Do you feel that the idealization of romance and the guarantee of the happily ever after is dangerous for society, or do you think it's empowering, or do you think it really depends on the hands of the person, just like in general?
I think it's damaging in the sense that people are waiting for their happy ever after to begin, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't always recognize that they're in that happy ever after phase. Because there are still struggles like bills needing to be paid and kids whining that they don't want to go to bed and whatever the daily stresses of their life. They have an unsatisfying job, but
Mm-hmm.
they might be happy in other aspects. And it's that whole complete self-actualization of happiness that I don't necessarily think is entirely attainable because you're still going to have good days and bad days. You're still going to have, your partner didn't do the dishes, or you asked them to take out the trash and they didn't, or um, they hog the blankets, or they snore too much. No one is going to be 100% perfect 100% of the time. But when they're 98% perfect and it's 95% of the time, those extra couple percentages that are outliers are where you're going to say, well, I can't be my happy ever after yet. I'm still waiting. But they're in it and they don't always see it until
Yeah.
after they are out of it.
Well, that's interesting. Because you could also say that people don't realize how unhappy they are until they're out of it.
Yes.
It's interesting. I think it's very true. One of the things that I speak and coach as well as write on, and it's a theme in my books, is that you have to love yourself. Like in the real world, the thing that I talk a lot about is that happily ever after is actually about falling in love with you. And that's a theme that you see in my books a lot, is the characters have to fall in love with themselves before they can claim their HEA romance. Because you're absolutely right. Like the idea of having this lifelong life of happiness is not about what the other person is doing. If you have a good partner, someone who can balance you, who can be your partner, then that is a magical thing. But they are never going to fill all of your buckets all of the time. That is really about your appreciation, gratitude, however you want to say it, for your life and what you are building, and in conjunction with that person, but also with yourself. I think that's, I could not agree more. I could not agree more.
You'll
Um,
find in a lot of my books that one person has fallen fast and hard and they're ready, and the other person is more resistant
mhm,
because it doesn't, you can't always say I love you right away. There are valid personal traumas that people have to fight through and get through in order to reach that point where they're able to say it. So what you'll see a lot, especially my female characters, are saying, I like you. I can see more. I'm not at the love, but I can see it there. And I
mhm.
want to try. I want to do better. I want to work on this. I want to make effort. And to me, that's as important as the actual words, I love you, because it's the act of service and it's the act of showing up and showing what's important.
Mhm.
They're not just saying the words to say the words, they're putting action behind it. So for me, as
Absolutely.
someone who loves like acts of service, that is more meaningful to me than the actual word of affirmation.
Yep. I
That's
love it.
I'm that's so interesting, Allie, because I'm like not the opposite, but I'm a words of affirmation person. And I sometimes I joke like all you really have to do is like tell me I'm pretty, tell me, or tell me all these things that I'll do whatever you want.
It's so interesting, like what works for people though, because that's a great example. Like to you, those words mean everything. And like to you, what I hear you saying, Sarah, which I may be wrong, is that the effort to say those things, as opposed to just like, well, I love you, like look at all I do, right? like, but there is a value too in saying it. I think both of you are like entirely correct, and I think that's so
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. It's maybe it's just something where, or I guess I heard someone say that like your love language, if you would ascribe to love languages, is the way that you express your love to other people too. So if you're a words of affirmation person or an acts of service person, that's because that's how you show you love somebody or care about something. I don't know if that's 100% true. But for me, that's definitely the case because that's how I tell people that or how I show my appreciation that I actually care about them is I tell them what they mean to me and how wonderful I think that they are, because that's actually how I feel and that's what is meaningful to me. And that's interesting that you, Allie, when you talk about how you write your characters, when I write my characters in my book, I feel like there's an element of that in the characters and how they show they're progressing in their relationship romantically, is when they can say exactly how the other person means to them at some, at whatever point in the book that is. And I think when it comes to like romance novels not being like realistic, or when people criticize that, like, oh, that's not realistic, and that's not, and in a way, romance novels aren't realistic because like we're not all falling in love with like hot billionaires who are actually like really good.
We're not. What?
I know. If there's anything I wish we could change in this world, that would be but I think that they give something to, I don't know if aspire is the right word, but like that's okay. Like I think that there's a lot of value in reading a romance story and realizing, oh, like this is the way the love interest behaves. Like it's okay to want to have this expectation of somebody who like communicates their wants and needs clearly, who tells me how much they appreciate me, who shows how much they appreciate me and love me through all the things that they do, and who will like defend me against jerks or whatever. Like I think that that's a good thing, and I think that that's okay to have that standard, even if some people write it off as too high, which is which I, not to go off on like another tangent, but like sometimes I feel like certain people, certain types of guys write off romance novels as unrealistic and just use that as an excuse to just be complete D-bags and like put in no effort and just be, just be absolute, pieces of crap.
When you look at 30, 40, 50 years ago, society has changed so much. Like even without the internet and tech, just people are not shamed for getting divorced. People are not shamed for having a second or third marriage, for having a child out of wedlock. Like those are things that are not big deals anymore, and they shouldn't be. But at the same time, women are able to have executive roles and to run Fortune 500 companies and to have all this success. And we still see stories of women who are successful who can't find a partner because the partner feels emasculated. And that's just where it makes me so upset, because you should be able to find someone who isn't threatened by your success. The fact that so many people are insecure about their partner outshining them, where in the reverse is just what has been expected for all of time, But all of a sudden, especially in the last couple of years, you're seeing online the rise of men who are really, what the word is, negging, like negatively complimenting someone, basically tearing them down in an effort to make them feel like, oh, this person sees me, I should go with that. No, like, just no. I want everyone to be able to stand as equals. I don't want anyone to be subservient to another or beholden to another. It is different when you are in a committed, equal relationship where you say, this is my duty or responsibility, and this is where my part of this comes in, and we're holding the weight together. however it's distributed, we are doing it together versus someone saying, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and you have to do A, B, C, D, and E. And it's the act of ordering, and it's the act of, this is my role, you have to do this, versus let's come to an agreement and talk about this together. Let's find a way that we can both, or in a poly situation, all of us be happy. All of us can be feeling like we are supported, and we're not feeling like it's a disproportionate amount of effort that's being applied there. We see a lot about the emotional labor, emotional load, and it shouldn't all fall on one person. Sometimes it does fall on one person because they're choosing to take on that role. But that means in turn that their partner should have some other way that they contribute to offset that.
I'm hearing you describe your philosophy of a ideal partnership, which I don't disagree with you, but like as I'm listening, the question that I have is, do you feel, because I also heard you say that your books feature things like found family, which are very important to you, and the relationships. Do you feel that as romance authors, we have a responsibility for depicting what we view as healthy relationships? And if that's true, how do we reconcile these dark romance, alcohol, manipulation, like Stockholm Syndrome, the rise in popularity of things like that? Because there's a lot going on in romance now that is not that thing, like not a healthy, balanced relationship. And people are very much enjoying that. So that's many, many questions. I'm sorry. First question, do you think that we have a bit of a responsibility to depict what we view as healthy relationships?
Yes, there are caveats to that. So if you're writing in certain genres, you expect to have an element of fantasy to it, whether it is fantasy or paranormal or dark romance. There's a fantastical element to those. But when you're writing contemporary romance like I do, you want something that is not problematic, but something that is going to be, I want something that's going to be healthy and is going to show someone that I am worthy of having my own self, and I'm worthy of the right person versus I am the person that can be treated like this. I want someone to be able to stand up and say, I know who I am. I know what I want. This is not beneficial to me. This relationship is no longer serving me, whether it's a friend relationship or a boss relationship or a family relationship or a romantic partner. It's modeling what we want to see so that people can accept that. That said, when it comes to dark romance and things like that, there are a certain, you accept that it's a fantastical element, and you understand that just because you want to read it might not be what you want to see replicated in real life. You might not want to have that in your own life, but you can indulge in the fantasy in a world where this does happen.
Does it concern you when women, very young women, are reading this? Because a lot of what we're talking about right now requires from everything from how you show up in a relationship and what equal in a relationship looks like to who you're looking for or how you define HEA for yourself. A lot of this intrinsically implies a level of self-knowing that comes with experience, comes with age. So when we're looking at like 20-year-olds, and I also am so curious what your thoughts are on dating apps and how this plays into healthy relationships or the lack thereof, because when you're looking at a person who is self-possessed and has the experience, and I'm not saying that 20-year-olds can't, I don't mean that, because there are certainly many 50, 60-year-olds who do not have it either, and many 20-year-olds who are sage AF. But when you're looking at somebody who doesn't have a strong sense of self, regardless of their age, are we I personally get concerned about reading depictions of toxic relationships as sexy. Not to say that anybody should not be allowed to do anything, like that's not my point, but it deeply concerns me, having worked with teenagers for a long, long time, the idea that like the differential of, this is fun and not real versus like the realistic darkness, like, I mean, it's a monster, it's an alien, that's one thing. But if it's like a mob boss, that's something else. And it concerns me personally, the idea of like what we're putting forth as like the desired relationship for people, and we can't be responsible for this, but for people who don't have the self-possession to separate that as like, this is obviously unhealthy. I don't know. Thoughts from both of you?
Yeah. So I was actually at an event in Portland this weekend, and I was staying across from, I won't call it the Heathman Hotel. And my friend came to visit and she said, "Oh, this is the hotel where they visit in 50 Shades of Grey." And I said,
Okay.
"I've never read or seen those." And she said, "Oh, I thought like every romance writer had to do it." No. Um, I want to read about healthy relationships, and I want people to see there is more than the toxic relationship. There is a certain space for them, but you don't have to consume it if you don't want to. You have the option of saying, no, that is not for me. And when you have those toxic relationships in your life, it is sometimes more difficult to cut those ties. I have a good friend who writes dark mafia romance, and she has certain boundaries around how she uses certain words. She might refer to a person differently than she talks about their body parts, and vice versa. She'll call a person, or she'll call a person's body parts a CUNT, but she will never refer to a female character as a CUNT. And that is a hard boundary for her. So it's something that I hadn't put thought to in terms of what I will and won't do or put my characters through or how I represent myself. But it's something that I was doing internally, and I had those boundaries in place already. So I won't depict various acts or various types of scenarios. I won't do certain things that I won't depict rape or assault. I won't depict cheating. There's just boundaries that I have in place that I don't think about. I just automatically shy away from them because that's not something I'm interested in even opening. And I understand that for some people, it is the way that they process their thoughts and their emotions and the way that they process their history and the things they've gone through. Because the way that they process those is how I write and process my found families. It's the exact same thing. It's just with a positive versus negative, so to say, view. I have been through a lot of therapy, and coming out on the other side of it, it's important to me to show the various stages of personal growth. There's the stage where you don't know what you're capable of and what you want, and that's okay. And there's also the stage of knowing where you want and what you want to go and not being in the place to attain that yet. You can see the work is going to take a long time. You want to work towards that, but you're not there yet. And that's entirely valid. When we come to dark romance and we see people who they want specific types of scenes depicted, that's nothing to do with the writer. That's nothing to do with the community. That is more on how they want to see certain, for lack of a better word, fantasies played out. Just because someone indulges in a certain, like in a kink scenario, if they indulge in certain types of play, that doesn't mean that they want someone to do that without their consent. They're consenting to this act, and in this controlled environment, they want this act. So when you look at the dark romance books, they are in the specific sense, consenting to this book and consenting to this darkness for the period of this book. When the book is over and they close the book, they return to their everyday life. And if they seek out another dark romance, that's not bad. That's just part of life. But for the time that they are engrossed in this book, they are consenting to this book and what the book contains. Then they can close the book, put it away, process, and decide to go from there.
Very interesting way to like put it, because it kind of speaks back and sort of loops back into the idea that all of this, we do write fairy tales, we do write fantasy. It is accurate not only in the technical sense of the definitions of fantasy as they've been laid out by fantasy writers in the past, but also in what we're trying to achieve. You know, as Sarah was saying earlier, the ideal, right? We're looking, you know, so sort of bucketing a dark romance as a fantasy played out, and then the end of it is, it comes with a conclusion, is an definitely interesting spin on how that works. Intriguing indeed. Sarah, thoughts here before we slide?
I mean, I think I know we're a 30 minutes or less format podcast. So like, I think we covered a lot of really incredible points brought up by Allie. I think that honestly, I think this is like a topic that you could have like a 9-hour conversation about.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you know what I mean? Yeah. And like, if you asked 10 different people, they could give you 10 different takes on that, which is important though, because I feel like it's a very individual experience. Like reading is individual to the reader, and like what they take out of reading a romance is going to be different from what I take out of it, from what you take out of it. I think it's cool that like we're all in a genre that we can get into this heavy topic, but at the other side of it, it's also like really enjoyable and fun, and you know, it's romance and steam and meet cutes and first kisses and all this. Like I think it just goes to show how incredible as a genre like romance is. It's not just the surface shallow stuff that I think certain people write it off as. I think we can get into a really deep conversation about expectations and how romance affects people's love and relationship expectations, and you can get into a discussion about it for 9 hours and go into like every different subtopic and every different tangent. And I don't know, I think that's a good thing, and I think this is something that we could like come back and have another podcast episode about, because I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface, you know, like.
So we're gonna have to go into Quick and Dirty Romance, the extra long edition. Is that what I heard?
Extended, yeah.
Read for her pleasure.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
The enhanced edition. I love it. That was great for me. Was it good for you, ladies?
Oh yeah, for me.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for listening to this tiny scratch of a very deep and long surface. If you like what you hear, please reach out to us all. Leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. Go read all of our books. You can find out more about Allie on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. She is at Allie Lasky. And as for Sarah and me, you can find us on Instagram at author Sarah Skye. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, all at author Skye McDonald.
And you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm at author Sarah S. We love to hear from you, so reach out and DM us with any questions or requests for future episodes.
Allie, thank you again for joining us. It has been a delight and so thought-provoking.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to get to see you guys in person, and well, through the screen.
And shameless plug on that, Allie and I will both be at the Love and Devotion book convention in like what, 3 weeks? June 21st. Yeah. That's right, in San Diego. So if you're near San Diego, make sure you grab your tickets, because you can come and say hi to both of us.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.